Hi, this is Damon Fordham. I'm a professor of history over at Virginia College and Springfield College here in Charleston. I'm speaking with So Exquisite Charleston for that particular website on the Denmark-Vessey slave rebellion that took place here in Charleston back in 1822. I'm also the author of 2 books, which I'll talk about a little bit later on in this interview. In this book, True Stories of Black South Carolina, which is a collection of very rare stories about black life in this state, one of the things that I talk about is the Denmark-Vessey Rebellion. Denmark-Vessey was a former slave turned free man who lived in this house right behind me, number 56 Bull Street, right here in Charleston. And here's his story. He was born in 1787 and was a slave to a man by the name of Captain Joseph Vessey. And one of the things that Captain Vessey allowed him to do was something most slave masters knew not to do, which was he allowed Denmark to learn how to read. And among the things he read were the Constitution of the United States, the Bible, and stories about the Haitian Revolution, where a lot of the former slaves there had an uprising and overthrew the French and became the first free black country in the New World. Anyway, Vessey around the early 1800s took part in a lottery here in Charleston. And with the money that he won, he went over to his master and asked him, well, master, how much am I worth? And he said, oh, you're worth about $800 or so. So Vessey took the money, flicked it around, and bam, there it was. He paid for his freedom. So he settled in this particular house that we see. And among other things, he became a carpenter, as well as a class leader at what was then known as Hempstead AME Church, which is roughly where Mall Park is today on the east side of Charleston. And Vessey didn't do like other preachers did. He didn't basically deal with pie in the sky and all that kind of thing. He primarily dealt with a very practical type of religion. He used verses such as Exodus 21:16 that said that he that stealeth a man and selleth him shall be put to death, along with Revelations 13:10, which taught he that leadeth into captivity shall be led into captivity. And so somewhere around the 1820s, he gathered a group of his men together and they began to plot a grand slave rebellion that would go something like this. They were going to basically break into the armories and steal guns, and then they'd set fires throughout Charleston. And as the white masters would come out of their houses to try to put out the fire, they'd take their guns, bam, shoot them, and take loads of blacks to Charleston Harbor, where they would go aboard the ships and sail to Haiti in freedom. He managed to get many African Americans throughout the countryside areas of Charleston to go along with this. But one of the things that he cautioned his men not to do was to go to what were then known as the house Negroes. The house Negroes were the ones that he described as the ones who got old clothes from their masters. They were among the favored few, and they had more privileges than the other slaves in those days. So anyway, at one point, one of his men, William Paul, went over to the battery, the same battery that we go to today, and he spoke with a man by the name of Peter Prelude, sometimes known as Peter DeSevenes. And he told him, hey, Peter, you want to get down with what Denmark-Vessey is doing? And he's like, Denmark-Vessey, who that is? So he explained about the rebellion. He's like, I got to tell my boss this. And he ran off. And so he went to his master, Captain John Prelude, where he ate that cheese. He spilled those beans. Homeboy did some serious ratting that day. And sure enough, as a result, the militia came to this house and captured Denmark-Vessey, and they went on trial. Vessey and 34 of his men were hanged in July of 1822. It is widely believed that they were hanged at the location known as the Hanging Tree over on Ashley Avenue. But it was never certain where, because the city fathers didn't want the blacks to make a shrine to Vessey for that to inspire them. But ironically, his legacy is done in a very interesting way. Over on Marion Square, not very far from where we're standing, they built a fort that was designed to put down slave rebellions in the future. Well, in 1842, that fort converted into a school that we know today as the Citadel. And another result of the Vessey Rebellion was that since Vessey basically taught his followers through his ability to read the Bible and read the Constitution and all that, that was one of the things that made it illegal for African Americans to learn how to read within this particular area here. And so therefore, the legacy of Denmark Vesey consists of not only the creation of the citadel, but an understanding that people who were in slavery back then didn't always just sit back content with their luck. You had serious resistance, and much of that resistance took place right here in our so exquisite city of Charleston. This is Damon Fordham, and I thank you for listening.